Orochimaru, the Rogue Sannin, the OG villain of Naruto, is a tad different from most of the main antagonists introduced later on in the series. Itachi, Pain, Obito, and Madara were all portrayed as morally gray villains. Of course, they were all responsible for destruction on a wide scale, but for every single one of them, their end goal was always peace. So regardless of how demented or far gone they were, none of them were just inherently evil, and they can all be technically classified as broken heroes. Orochimaru, on the other hand, was always unapologetically evil. His goal wasn't some grandiose, twisted, over-the-top plan that would result in peace. He just wanted to master all kinds of jutsu available to mankind, and to transcend mankind itself by becoming immortal. You could maybe make the argument that he started off as kinda good and was attempting to find the cure to mortality after witnessing the effects that death had on the deceased's loved ones. But he'd fallen off that path long ago, and while you can't objectively state that he's more evil than the aforementioned characters, what makes it easy to argue that was his human experimentation. While Pain, Obito, and Madara may have lacked regard for human life considering how many they've taken, Orochimaru takes this a step further. He has gone out of his way to torture people by subjecting them to all sorts of experiments, a lot of whom have been kidnapped, all in the name for scientific development. Through all of this research, he was able to develop countless techniques, especially if you include the filler. He's actually a pioneer, a sinister one but still. So without further ado, I've decided to tackle all of Orochimaru's scientific developments and human experimentation in this one video. You wanna know what exactly Orochimaru contributed to the field of science? Well, you've come to the right place. Now, Orochimaru had two categories of shinobi involved in his human experiments: the specimen and the guinea pig. The specimen are elite shinobi, or shinobi that possess unique abilities that Orochimaru would want to replicate. The guinea pigs are the poor suckers that are stuck in the hordes in Orochimaru's prisons to be used as lab rats, suffering hideous mutations, also that Orochimaru can unlock the secrets of nature. Orochimaru's research was considered so important that Danzo would help him kidnap life test subjects in order to conduct experiments meant to replicate the first Hokage's Kekkei Genkai, the Wit style. With Danzo's help, Orochimaru was able to gather 60 children to implant the DNA of Hashirama Senju into. It was difficult to find a child compatible with the first Hokage's cells, and the kids kept on dying. Eventually, Orochimaru dropped the experiment and considered it a failure, and it wasn't until the events of the Tenchi Bridge arc and Orochimaru met the grown-up Yamato that he found out that someone did actually succeed in compatibility, and that's when he said that the leaf ought to thank him since he revived the Wit style. And that was just the beginning of Orochimaru's journey for pursuing all jutsu and immortality through unethical human experimentation. In order to learn all jutsu known to man, one would require a lifetime, so Orochimaru had to pursue eternal life. He would keep on experimenting on his test subjects until he managed to achieve the living corpse reincarnation, or the eternal youth and immortality jutsu. With this technique, Orochimaru is able to transfer his soul into a new body and then consume the body's soul until he's dominant, though he can only do this every 3 years, and it seems like his body weakens greatly towards the end. So Orochimaru can remain alive so long as he has a new host body ready for him. The first body he took over was an unnamed woman with black hair, and the second was a shinobi named Genyumaru, the prisoner that won the prison brawl, and their reward was to become Lord Orochimaru's vessel. Orochimaru's true form eventually became a scaly white snake made up of thousands of smaller snakes. Speaking of immortality, there's another forbidden jutsu that Orochimaru perfected, a very valuable one. The reanimation jutsu, one of the most popular and most broken techniques. That's why Orochimaru said that Tobirama was the Hokage he respected the most, because this jutsu propelled Orochimaru and Kabuto to become strong enough to challenge the entire world. Kabuto followed Orochimaru's will after he died, So it's likely that Orochimaru's the one that was planning to collect all the DNA and use it for an army of the undead. Of course, Kabuto managed to modify the jutsu quite a bit, but I'm sure that Orochimaru would have been down that path if he didn't get blindsided by the Sharingan. This was almost the perfect jutsu, but of course it would come at a cost, and a human body would be needed for the reanimated shinobi. And an army of shinobi would require a lot of sacrifices. Though by that point, Orochimaru was too cold to even care anymore, and he used his students Kin and Zaku as sacrificial pawns to revive the first and second Hokage. All he needed was a body to act as a vessel, and as long as he possessed some of the desired shinobi's DNA, he could summon the shinobi's soul to overtake the body. Orochimaru was not able to perfect the jutsu while he was alive, and he revived the shinobi much weaker than their original power level. But when Sasuke brought him back, Orochimaru seems to have perfected it, and was able to revive the Hokage a lot closer to their prime, using the White Zetsu as the sacrifice. Orochimaru's also been interested in nature energy and how to harness it. He went to the Ryuchi cave in order to learn with the Great Sage Snake, but his host body was too fragile to be able to enter Sage mode. Eventually, Orochimaru came across Jugo and took an interest in his clan's Kekkei Genkai. Jugo's body can absorb natural energy passively. It also releases a fluid in response that reacts in contact with natural energy, causing physical alterations to the body. By isolating an enzyme from Jugo's bodily fluid and mixing it with his own sage chakra, Orochimaru was able to create the curse mark, which was an alternate method of harnessing Senjutsu chakra. Like Jugo's Kekkei Genkai, the curse mark had two stages, where the first stage has a pattern form on the shinobi's body, and the second stage is usually accompanied with a drastic change in skin color and body modifications. The curse mark was stated to eat away at the person's mind and personality, driving them to madness if used for too long. The curse seal is also accompanied with a bit of Orochimaru's will, or conscious. That's how he was revived in the war, as Anko's curse mark had a part of his soul and all it needed was a host body. Orochimaru originally tested the curse mark on Anko and had several prisoners at first. There was even this one abandoned prison which housed all the failed test subjects for the curse mark specifically. Eventually he applied the finalized version of the curse mark on the Sound 4, Kimimaru, and Sasuke, and he also gave a different version of the curse mark named the Animal Curse Seal to Mizuki in the filler, which ended up turning him into a Tiger Man. Orochimaru also met the Iburi clan, a clan that could turn into smoke, but risked fatalities if the wind dispersed their body while in that form, so Orochimaru gave them the curse mark too, in order to partially stabilize their ability, and in return, they provided him with life test subjects. And that's not even it for Orochimaru's experiments. Did you know that after he lost his arms in the Reaper's belly, he studied the Uzumaki clan's ruins until he uncovered the Shinigami mask that allowed the user to summon and control the Reaper by allowing it to possess him, and that way he was able to regain the arms that he'd lost. Orochimaru had also remained in contact with Danzo and is the one that created the Sharingan arm, or rather created the artificial being whose arm could accommodate all those Sharingan, that being Shin, a perfect clone or synthetic human, genetically produced with unique capabilities like accelerated healing and regeneration. Shin's also not the only artificial human created by Orochimaru, as his own kin, Mitsuki, was also created in a lab. Orochimaru also aligned himself with a scientist named Amachi, where they attempted to create a shinobi capable of underwater combat, and they kidnapped several villagers from the Land of Sea for live experimentation, though he'd eventually abandoned the project. Orochimaru also introduced Anko to the project, but he deemed her a lost cause
when she didn't want to use the curse mark,
so he wiped out her memories of the experiment. In the anime, Orochimaru also created a robot, the Mecha Naruto, whose design was based based on the Ghetto statue apparently, and whose function was to capture the Nine Tails and interrupt the Akatsuki's plans. It could absorb chakra and it had all sorts of mechanisms, but then it backfired and the robot snapped, and that was that. Orochimaru also kidnapped Suigetsu and experimented on him frequently to try to replicate his liquefying ability. And also in the anime, he was able to develop genjutsu pills strong enough to subdue the Eight Tails, and he also collected some of the beast's DNA for later use. If you think about it, Orochimaru was the Einstein of his generation. Sure, he was sadistic, twisted, sacrificed his humanity to transcend its limits. That's why at the end he became this monster snake parasite that had to switch hosts every 3 years. Orochimaru had committed so many crimes in the name of science. And it seems like that eventually paid off, because at the end of the day, Orochimaru was pardoned for his crimes. Not because everyone forgave him, but because of how his beyond human abilities could serve the shinobi. We saw how important he was during the war arc. Had he not revived the first 4 Hokage, the alliance would have been doomed. 2 years after the 4th war, and Sasuke's wondering how Orochimaru's allowed to roam freely considering his criminal past. Orochimaru reminds him that, first off, he's not rolling freely, he's always under surveillance. And that second off, the reason shinobi like him and Sasuke are kept around is in case an even greater evil comes and the force required to defeat it is beyond human. So you could say that Orochimaru's scandalous and unethical experimentation is also what saved him from justice in the end. How ironic. Anyways, that's it for today. Make sure to drop a like, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.